Good morning, everybody. I'm Marco TREGUA from the University of Naples Federico II, and I'm about to present the research I prepared together with Anna Dauria and Alessandra CHIARA. The title of this research, as you can see, is Digitalization as an Enabler of Multi-Level Internationalization of Firms. In recent years, we all observed the role of digitalization and internationalization in the development of firms, with the challenges and the opportunities they both offer to firms. There have been several calls for research about this topic and several papers already published on this topic, but due to the recent increasing attention on digitalization, there's a need to further focus on this topic and to observe which are the effects of the digitalization on the internationalization processes. In order to recall the most important contributions that we observed in last years, we had the focus on digitalization as a way to catalyze, widen the scope of internationalization and generate supporting the internationalization process. What is interesting, parallel to the perspective of scholars, is also what the supranational institutions as well as the association of firms proposed when dealing with digitalization in the international realm. We reported in this slide some examples. As you can see, there's the perspective of the Association of Craft and SMEs in Europe, stating that digitalization can greatly support the internationalization process of SMEs, and the same applies to the perspective of governments, as the European Commission and the Chinese government, and they agree on the idea of digitalization as a tool supporting the internationalization of firms and the improvement of the way in which firms take part to the international arenas. We observed literature on these two topics, and as I said before, there are several contributions dealing with both topics, and we were particularly inspired by two of these contributions. One is the paper published in 2017 and authored by Remane et al., stating that digital technologies can greatly impact organizations, but further efforts are required in order to understand what is the potential impact on the organization. And similarly, and also more recently, Bettiol et al. Stated that further research is needed in order to understand how digitalization can favor the setting of the internationalization strategies for firms, and especially for small firms. So we started collecting contributions on both topics. We set multiple carries dealing with these two topics, namely digitalization or digitization and internationalization, and through the Web of Knowledge, Web of Science search engine, we collected 366 contributions at first. Then we filtered them based on the field of science and on the typology of contributions, and we ended up with 79 contributions. A general overview on these contributions let us understand that these contributions have been published in several journals, 54 journals compared to 79 contributions. It makes less than 2 contributions per journal as an average, and these contributions shaped a debate that quite unexpectedly is long-lasting, since the first contribution dates back 2005. 3 countries are more active in this debate, and the scholars from these countries are more active in this debate, and these countries are the US, Canada, and UK. Thanks to the data we collected, we launched an analysis through Bibliometric and its add-on Biblioshiny to observe which is a possible categorization of this contribution. And thanks to the use of the software Bibliometric, we ended up with 3 categories combining the contributions dealing with both internationalization and digitalization. These 3 groups were labeled in this research as innovation, entrepreneurship, and markets and competitiveness. And as you can see from this graph that we got from Bibliometric, the 3 groups are considering both internationalization and digitalization with a special focus on a specific topic, namely the 3 topics I mentioned a few seconds ago. And in this slide, we reported one of the most relevant contributions for each of this group. There were several, but in order to clarify what is the key aspect in each group, we selected just one. The first one relates to innovation and to the way in which digital instruments can favor the achievement of innovation thanks to the collaboration of multiple actors in networks. The second approach describes entrepreneurship as the result inspired and stimulated by the digitalization in the international domain. So digital technologies have an effect also in the international domain, not only locally. And the third group is related to markets and competitiveness. So firms can lever on these new tools in order to improve their market capability and to be more competitive in the market in which they are already active. After observing these 2 groups, we focused on one more element, and this element is more related to practice. That's why we selected the reports published by governments in the European Union about the implementation of digital tools. So the digital programs that we have all heard about in several countries were described quite carefully by each government in Europe, and we collected these reports and ran an analysis, a manual content analysis on these reports. These reports were collected in the same language, in the same year, and they were all issued by the national governments. This was a way in which we tried to ensure the higher homogeneity and the higher reliability we could. Thanks to this analysis, we observed the 3 teams that emerged from the 3 groups emerging from the bibliometric analysis, and we observed what governments are suggesting based on these 3 elements. The first one, as you may recall, is innovation, and we observed that innovation is something shaping the activities in the digital cluster, so in networks of firms leveraging on the digital tools, as well as innovation is something that permeates the relationships between firms in technology transfer processes. So the role of digital tools in this domain is to support innovation through collaboration. So it was both a way to combine, to confirm what we had observed in literature and to advance our understanding, because there were 2 different but combined perspectives. The second group is related to entrepreneurship, and digital tools offer the chance to set new firms. As you can see in this example, there are explicit ways to recall the chance to set new startups or new firms, generally speaking, through digital tools. So governments launched and supported digital-based programs in order to favor entrepreneurship in their countries and to stimulate the internationalization process of firms. The third theme is related to markets and competitiveness, and it refers to the opportunity to consider the role of digital tools in improving the marketability of firms their competitiveness in the international domain, as well as the opportunities for small and medium enterprises to be part of the market and to fill the gap they can perceive due to the differences that they usually have, the so-called liabilities they usually have when comparing with big firms, big companies. Due to the advances we acquired thanks to the observation of literature as well as the analysis of reports, we had some considerations, some final remarks deriving from our analysis. First of all, there's an approach to the use of digital tools for firms in the international domain through cooperation. So digital tools favored the cooperation, or should favor at least, since it's such a new topic, should favor the cooperation between firms in order to stimulate and implement innovation in the market. Moreover, digitalization is not just something affecting innovation and itself, but it's also the combination of a new way to compete, a way to acquire competitive advantage, as well as a new way for doing business. So innovation permeates most of the area of a firm and stimulates the advances a firm can achieve. This is a way in which we observed results aligned to what we had already observed in literature, but we also have some new elements, some elements that are quite unexpected, because the observations of reports and literature particularly stressed the role of SMEs, and we recalled the call for research from Bettiol that I mentioned at the beginning of this presentation, and SMEs are at the core of this digital transformation process, since they can fill the gap they usually have to deal with in competing in the international market due to the competition of big companies that have a wider set of resources, wider financial resources too. So the digital tools can favor the filling of this gap. Moreover, one other topic that emerged from our analysis is sustainability, meant as the long-lasting of firms, because what governments propose more than scholars is the use of digital technologies to improve the viability of some businesses, especially in new markets or in markets that are shaped by a tough competition. To sum up, so we highlighted some elements that described the role of digitalization in the internationalization process of firms from both a theoretical and a practical perspective, and we think that this is a promising area of research, so we think it would be needed to advance this research by considering, first of all, governments and firms that are outside the European context, in order to understand how the starting level in terms of digital skills can affect the impacts of technologies, and especially of digital technologies. Moreover, we observed the perspectives of governments, while it would be needed also to consider what firms are actually doing when implementing digital technologies. And finally, we think that as well as digital technologies will be implemented some more, since most of them are quite recent, there will be more evidence to be considered, so a longitudinal perspective applied to this analysis can favor a further understanding as well as a confirmation or some more consideration on the analysis that we run. Thank you everybody, and all suggestions and questions are very welcome.